You're looking at a live picture of the planet Mars. It's closer now than it has been for 17 years, and it's probably man's next prime target for exploration. Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. From the tabloids to Hollywood.
What in the name of time is that?
To popular myth makers.
Beings from another world.
Mars is the stuff of which dreams are made.
This is amazing.
Our focus, the prospects that some of those dreams could come true. And we'll have a late update on the flight of the Space Shuttle Discovery as it continues to orbit the Earth.
Discovery clears the tower.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
The Wall Street Journal cited it as the most important event of the year, and you can see why. A distinguished Boston astronomer detailed his observation of canals on Mars, built to carry water from the polar ice caps to oases in the Martian desert. It was, the journal concluded, proof of the existence of intelligent life on Mars. That was back in 1906. By 1924, there was a higher level of skepticism, but still, the New York Times of August 22nd that year reported that powerful radio stations of both the Army and Navy departments will stand by from midnight tonight to 8 a.m. Monday to listen in for possible signals from Mars. And some noises, likened to harsh dots in groups of 4 and 5, were picked up. If it was a code, though, no one could break it, and most scientists dismissed the noise. Tonight, as Mars is 3 to 4 million miles closer to Earth than its normal 40 million mile distance, 5 American astronauts aboard the Discovery are out in space circling the Earth. Their mission, it can be said, is another leg on the journey not to find intelligent life on Mars, but to send it there. We asked the brilliant science fiction writer Isaac Asimov to share a few thoughts with us on our continuing fascination with Mars.
Of all the worlds we know of, it's the one that's nearest the Earth in characteristics. It has a 24-and-a-half-hour day. Mars is a red planet. The red is equated with blood, so that Mars has always been named for the god of war. When an Italian astronomer, Virginio Schiaparelli, detected narrow dark lines on Mars and called them canali, meaning channels, like the English channel. It was translated as canals, which are different from channels because canals are man-made, artificial. So that the feeling arose there might not only be life on Mars, but advanced life. This combined with the earlier feeling about Mars as a war planet made one think that not only was there an advanced civilization there, but that it might be inimical. And then, in 1898, came the real clincher when H.G. Wells wrote War of the Worlds. It was the very first story of interplanetary warfare. He really presented a frightening picture of Martians taking over Great Britain. He meant it as a social satire. And so, of course, he was showing how Great Britain, the greatest imperialist nation of all, might feel if people who were as advanced over them as they were over Africans would come over and simply start taking over Great Britain without any regard for the natives, whatever.
A bulletin is handed me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city.
But the satirical point was lost on many people who just read it as an adventure story. And its power was such that in 1938, 40 years after he'd written the story, by which time we should have known better, when Orson Welles put on his program about the Martians landing in New Jersey, announcing quite clearly that this was fiction. Lots of people ran for their lives.
I'm extremely surprised to learn that a story which has become familiar to children through the medium of comic strips and many succeeding novels and adventure stories should have had such an immediate and profound effect upon radio listeners.
After H.G. Wells, there were so many science fiction stories written about Martian invasions, Martians as villains, and in the movies to those children's serials and so on, that Martian became a kind of code word for some dreadful aliens who were absolutely irresistible and evil. Then in 1965, Mariner 4 passed by and took the first close-up pictures of Mars. No canals, just craters.
And they warn that the Martian atmosphere is far too thin and cold to support any kind of life. It'll take weeks more to analyze the data and solve the controversy. But no one disagrees that a major scientific discovery has been made.
And then later on, we got better probes, and they mapped all of Mars very carefully. It's just a rock formation that happens to look like a face from a certain angle. Nobody seriously believes that that is a meaningful artifact, except the usual quota of, I'm not sure what to call them, of innocence. Now is the time to look, because it's at its closest, and you can see it look biggest, and you can see the markings more interestingly. So even though there is no scientific value in it, there is pleasure in it and excitement.
And liftoff. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
It would be a good idea if the Soviet Union and ourselves pooled our resources and sent a joint mission to Mars, sharing the risk, sharing the expense, etc. However, that's a showpiece sort of thing. I think that, in addition, what we have to do is use the shuttle to build the space station, use the space station to really exploit nearby space, from the shuttle to the space station, to structures in space and space settlements, and a mining station on the moon, and then to reaching out for Mars and the asteroids and beyond. And I imagine that in the end, it won't be Earthmen who'll be heading out to Mars on a large scale, the asteroids, the outer planets, but it'll be these settlers who'll be the Vikings of the 21st and 22nd century,